What's up, guys? As you can see here by the nature, I'm sure, I am actually back in Maine. It was very difficult and almost kind of last minute, but all of Juliana and my options ran out as my tourist visa expired in Germany, and so we were forced to separate once again, which has been difficult to say the least. We're hopeful that in the near future we can be together again, but I just wanted to give everyone an update. I did my 2 weeks of self-isolation, and I'm planning to return to the Bay Lines to work in the next week here, and yeah, other than that, it's basically just trying to keep a routine until we know for sure when Juliana might be able to come here, and trying not to think about that stuff too much because unfortunately it hasn't been so positive so far. We're hopeful that coronavirus can start to be managed a little better, and eventually we can be together in one place. So I'll update you from the next spot. Alright, I decided that the next spot could actually be just walking along the trail here. So here, I'll do a quick 360. I just found this little spot off of the main road to park and pull off my car, and there were some walking trails here, and it's hard to find anywhere that's kind of alone right now, where I feel comfortable to record myself like this, especially because I've added a few more parts to my main camera here, and it looks like I should know what I'm doing, and I really don't. Oh, nice mosquito in the ear. I definitely didn't miss that while I was in Germany. Speaking of which, there were definitely a lot of differences over in Germany as opposed to here in Maine, as I'm sure you guys were probably well aware of, but some of the major things that I noticed were actually, as crazy as it sounds, political. There's definitely a culture in the US that I guess I wasn't so aware of before I left, and is something that I'm becoming more aware of all the time. But in the US, because of possibly this right here, the nature, the vast amounts of nature, when people came here initially, I think they had to be very individualistic, and to be so individualistic is kind of entrenched in the way we live. We want to do things our way. We want the freedom to do so. However, in Germany, things are a bit different. There's probably a number of reasons for that, but perhaps the biggest reason is that there was a major atrocity, and Germany wanted to avoid something like that ever happening again. And to do that, they wrote a constitution that gave people certain inalienable rights, just like we did here. And they actually borrowed bits and pieces of our constitution, among others, and wrote something much more modern, I think. And in those inalienable rights, I can't say 100% legally what the terminology is, but something that I noticed certainly was that humans had a right to life, a right to health care, and that's something that in the US, although I think some people believe in that, some feel that you need to work and earn that right almost. Unfortunately, for someone like me, who might want to do something kind of out of the ordinary with like YouTubing, makes it very difficult in the US. You have to work a job, and in the background you have to try and pursue a hobby, which can be really good because it encourages people to be practical and dream for something. But in Germany, I felt like there's a lot of encouragement to pursue what you truly love and what you really want to do, as opposed to pursuing it on the side. And my personal thoughts are that, you know, somebody should do something for the love of it, not for the love of money or for the love of something else. And so I think with these inalienable rights in Germany, people like a doctor, while they pay higher tax rates, much higher tax rates in Germany, I think that many of them don't really mind. I'm sure some of them get fed up with all the taxes that they have to pay, etc. But I think they do see that that goes to the general welfare of everyone in Germany, and I think that supportive culture is really important, and something that the US, as it becomes more modern, should incorporate. And thought a lot about it. I don't have all the answers or any of the answers, but something that I think that's really interesting, and maybe something that we could look into, is that I see this divide in the US between the left and the right. I try to avoid seeing only one side of that as right or wrong, and I obviously have my own personal opinions, but what I think is really important, and actually, you know what? This trail looks like it goes on for a long time, so I'm going to turn around, starting back to the car here. Something that I think is really important is that you recognize and are aware of the reasons as to why somebody might feel a particular way. In the US, many people who are far left or far right, or even only moderate, or, you know, just barely leaning one way or the other, I think they live a certain lifestyle and are surrounded by people of a similar nature, and they quite often aren't asked to see the other side. And I'm kind of rambling here, but I guess the best way I can point this out is in Maine. We have kind of a southern Maine region, which is much more populous and much more liberal. I think when you get lots of people in a smaller, condensed area, there can be a lot of benefits to that, but it takes a lot of understanding. And as the left side indicates, it's liberal, meaning tolerant and accepting. And of course, if you live in a city where there's people of all different races, ethnicities, I mean, you name it, there's a little bit of everything in much larger cities. New York is the best example of that, in my opinion, with it being a melting pot, but I've certainly seen it all over the world. Berlin was one of the most diverse cities I've seen in my life. That was very cool to see that. I saw that a couple years ago, not on my most recent trip, but in cities, having that immense diversity takes tolerance and liberalism. And then when you get out into nature, people don't tend to think that way. A lot of people who are out in nature, they don't see a lot of people. They aren't surrounded by a lot of different types of people, and so they grow into their bubble and they learn how to do things my way, or not my way, but their own way, an individualistic thinking. And like I mentioned before, there was a time and a place in America where everything was very far apart, very wild, and I think when people initially settled here, Europeans, who maybe had a more liberal sense, when they came here and were able to establish something for themselves, many of them went off on their own and established a self-identity, and I think that stuck around with people. So I try to see both sides, and obviously one of the biggest debates right now in the world is about tolerance and abuse of people's rights. And I think Black Lives Matter illustrates that to a T. I think it extends even beyond just one particular race into everyone's different types of living. And I think that there's a huge call in the world right now, partly due to COVID and due to the amount of people who can't work in the way that they did, have had to shake things up. And that's created a situation where people are aware that you need to be aware. And you need to understand that there are people who are struggling. There are people on the right who live out in the middle of nowhere and don't see a single case of COVID in months, and they're being told that they can't go to work and earn money to live, and they're expected to live off of, possibly if they're self-employed, that one single check that was issued. And then there are people in cities who, had a decent job, but they were able to claim unemployment based on their circumstances, and I'm not judging anyone here. But then, from what I've heard, there was some boosted program for unemployment, and some people were able to earn much more while unemployed than while going to work. And I mean, that's really completely besides the point, but I think some of these people, are really like, well, why the heck should we rush back to work? It's safer to stay at home and not have to go back to work. And some of these people are doing all right because, they're getting a little more pay than maybe if they were at work. And so I'm trying to understand everybody's point of view. And I certainly don't know everyone's situation, and I can't say to know, too much about all of this, but I really thought it was quite interesting to go from Germany and to come back here during all these riots and protests, and of course coronavirus still running fairly rampant here in the US, whereas in Germany things have kind of become much more managed, or at least manageable. So I just wanted to give my thoughts and share some of that with people to maybe encourage others to try and think about everybody's circumstances and to be more tolerant. I really hope that this moment in time becomes a revolution of sorts. I think that, doctors shouldn't be a doctor because they can earn a lot of money. I think that a doctor should be a doctor because they genuinely care about helping people, and if people can focus on more of what they're truly passionate about, then they can be more compassionate of others. I think quite often those in areas where they've had to be so individual, they don't always get support and encouragement from others, and so they become more extremely individual and they polarize even more. And those who perhaps in the city have always gotten help from everyone on everything, they maybe need to get pushed in the other direction and try to do some things on their own. And I think COVID probably has done that for a lot of people. So I really hope that this is a revolution of the mind, and that people choose to accept everyone and choose to encourage everyone to do what makes them happy, what makes them passionate about life. And so with that, maybe you can see it right there. There's my car. And so I'm gonna end the video here and get back in my car and slowly make my way back home. But stay safe, everyone. Don't take anything I said too seriously, but just some thoughts and ideas. And thanks for tuning in. Juliana, I miss you like crazy. I wish I was still in Germany with you. And I just can't wait until we can be back together. And I hope you know how much you've encouraged me and shown me compassion, and your family and friends, you know, and my own here have been so understanding, and my work has been understanding, and people in general have been pretty understanding of me and my situation. So thank you to everyone, and yeah, we'll catch up on the next episode.